Hello and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the match preview for the Aston Villa game that takes place on the 14th of September at 5:30 at Villa Park. So I think going into this straight away, I think this is one where this got mentioned quite a bit on mine and Connor's August review and then talking about September. I think we mentioned this quite a lot, so there are little things that I may say. If you want to know a bit more, go to that video and we'll explain it more in detail. But to get this started, the first thing we've got to talk about is Everton's last game and the season so far. It's been disastrous. If I do a little scroll here, we are bottom of the league with a -8 goal difference, scoring 2 while conceding 10. That 10 goals is the most conceded in the league by quite a country mile as well, besides Wolves. Us and Wolves have conceded the most goals in the league by a mile, and then the next closest person has conceded 5. So I think it's a real show of how bad it's been so far. And I get it's only the start of the season, but to be honest, we've had the game against Brighton, Spurs, 2 difficult games, but then last game against Bournemouth is one of the worst. It's one of the worst capitulations I've seen from any football team. It's embarrassing. Again, we go through it more in detail on that, and I don't want to sit and just bash the manager and the players again, especially since I am going to mention certain aspects from this game a little bit later on, but it's been the worst possible start to the season with 2 embarrassing defeats. The first one less, I think we performed okay in the Brighton game and we just let ourselves get picked apart defensively. But then an embarrassing loss against Tottenham and the most embarrassing loss in a few years that we've had in a few years against Bournemouth, and that's saying something for a club that has just been filled with embarrassment after embarrassment over the last few years. But I think it's there's a lot of things about Dyche as well going into this game. A lot of negative sentimentality around Dyche, thinking that he should go. The whole David Moyes fiasco, which I covered in a video a few days or a week or so ago now, about David Moyes potentially coming in to replace Sean Dyche, and I've gave my opinion on that. Again, it's in that video. I don't really see the point in moving from Dyche to Moyes. Very similar style of manager. Moyes is a better manager, don't get me wrong. But with the amount of money it'd cost to get rid of Dyche, and there's no real guarantee that Moyes is going to keep us up or anything, I get there's a lot of sentimentality again, like I mentioned, around him, around his time at the club before, and about the memories he brought back when Everton were actually a team that could, finish consistently in the top half or contend for Europe. But that's not this team anymore. There's nowhere near that amount of quality in this team anymore. And yeah, I think people need to keep calm heads. I think it's one of those where Dyche isn't going realistically. So even if we lose this game, we shouldn't be asking for his head. I kind of get it if we get battered again. If it's 3-4-0 again, then I think questions have to be answered by Dyche. And I think it needs to be time he accepts that maybe he's the problem and it's not just the players that are the problem. Moving on, our likely lineup. I can't see it going too different from the Bournemouth game, to be honest. If we have a little look at the Bournemouth game here, it was Pickford, Coleman, Tarkowski, Keane, Mikalenko, Irobotham, Gay, Harrison, and Dyche, McNeil, Calvert-Lewin. From his press conference, he mentioned that Coleman's touch and go, along with the fact that Branthwaite and Patterson have only really just got on grass, so there's no real chance they're going to be playing. No Coleman means Ashley Young's going to play. I'd much prefer it to be Roman Dixon. I hope it's Roman Dixon, but it's going to be Ashley Young. So what I expect to be is Pickford, Ashley Young, Tarkowski, Keane, and Mikalenko. I want it to be O'Brien, but I don't think it's going to be, to be honest. I still expect it to be Robin, Gay, Harrison, and Dyche, McNeil, Calvert-Lewin, to be honest. I don't see Dyche making changes. He's allergic to making changes. So why would he make a change? Again, the guy couldn't make a change if something was on fire in front of him. I think it's one of those things that it seems to be his big problem is that he doesn't know what to make changes on time. And then going into Villa's likely lineup, I am gonna have to have a little look here to my right because we do have Opta's predicted lineup for Aston Villa. So it would be Emi Martinez in goal, Bogard at right back, House and Torres at centre backs, Digne left back, McGinn, Onana, Tielemans and Ramsey as the midfield 4, and Duran and Morgan Rogers up front. Again, a few changes in there. Courtney House, someone who barely ever plays for Villa, and Jacob Ramsey has been more of a rotational player this season. Duran, of course, as well. Ollie Watkins is very touch and go, so we don't know if Ollie Watkins is going to play. There's a chance he does, chance he doesn't. But opt to think it's going to be Duran. That's still a very good lineup and still miles better than ours. And they do have a Champions League game 3 days later, so don't be surprised if people like Dyche take McGinn and even Onana are taking off decently early to make sure that they're rested for the game against, I believe it's Young Boys, and I believe that's away as well. But yeah, I still think this team's enough to do us a lot of damage. I think it's an interesting one. I think while I'm talking about Villa's thing, let's talk about who could be their key player, and then I'll circle back to ours. I think Villa's key player against us, it's got to be Morgan Rogers or Jacob Ramsey. Again, you've seen how much our fullbacks have been absolutely torn apart. Mikolenko's been ripped to shreds. Coleman's been ripped to shreds. They've all been ripped to shreds. It seems every time we've been getting tonked, it's the fullback getting ripped to shreds. And I see that being another example today. I think Jacob Ramsey's going to have a field day against Ashley Young. And to be honest, it won't surprise me if Bogard and McGinn have a field day and Ramsey and Rogers have the same again on the other side. I think the centre backs need to be really strong. Duran's had really good form, showing being a really good bench player for them, and he's really dangerous. So I think he could offer the same again for them. But of course, also Amadou Onana's the one we've got to mention, hasn't he? From what I've heard from Villa fans, he's been arguably the best player. Has got 2 goals already. Has looked like what we all said he could be when he left, and he's in a good side, an absolute powerhouse of a midfielder who can get involved in goals and can help, link defence to attack. And I think our midfield's going to have to be physical with him. It's shown in other games. I'm not saying kick the shit out of him, but we've seen Onana that when he gets, a little bit of physicality, he gets pushed and shoved a bit. He can, he can lose his head. The performance can dip. We know how to counter him. Hopefully we can. But also then there's players like Ross Barkley off the bench and stuff like that who could really cause problems for us. The chance that Ollie Watkins, of course, does come off the bench if he is on the bench or even starts, and then Duran off the bench. I think there's so many problem players, but I think it beating against us, Onana's going to be the key player for them, because I just feel like it's the Everton curse, isn't it? It just has to happen against us. And then our key player, to be honest, it's hard to really pick a key player. I'm gonna say Dwight McNeil. Dwight McNeil or Iliman and Dyche, one of the two. Because I think it's going to be a game where it's going to be mainly built off just charging on the counter attack. I'm going to say Dyche, because I think Dyche can offer that a little bit better than McNeil can, in picking up the ball and driving with it and driving at defenders. I think that's what we're going to need to do. It's going to have to be counter attack, and I think Dyche's the best out of the 4 forward players that we've got at offering that counter attacking presence. It honestly wouldn't have surprised me if Beto starts, but he's not gonna. I think it's gonna be Calvert-Lewin. But yeah, I think Ndai's gonna be our best player. I think being able to run at them and create his own chances specifically is going to be vital against a team that's very solid defensively. Villa have conceded 4 goals, but a team that is known for being quite solid defensively and able to pick up results under Emery. They could, like I said, there could be more rotation considering it is. There is the first Champions League fixture, Villa's first game in the Champions League for God knows how long. It's been a very long time at this point. But yeah, I think there could be more rotation, but I see Onana having a real impact for them, and I see Ndai doing the same for us. Moving on, Sean Dyche did have his presser today, and of course I mentioned earlier that he mentioned Coleman's touch and go on the Bramford and Patterson stuff, but the main thing I want to touch about is he said, I've watched the game 47 times, and I can assure you we lost not because of the substitutes. Honestly, as someone who's more Dyche in, I'm getting sick of hearing this, to be completely honest. You can't sit and say, taking the guy off who controlled the game, and then all of a sudden we had no control in the game, didn't impact the game. Because that's like Dyche saying, no matter what, we were losing that game at that point. Well, then, what's the point? I think I don't want to sit and dog on him too much, but again, it's the one issue with Dyche is he has an issue with this. It's just the stupidest quotes you'll ever hear. Just excuse after excuse after excuse, and no actually taking responsibility for anything. The guy refuses to take any accountability for any of his actions, and it's why the fan base are turning on him. I like the fact that he'll speak his mind, and if you believe something, he'll say it. But when it's just, to be honest, it's just blatant crap that comes out of his mouth. It's hard to really take seriously what he's saying, and this is an example. There was a lot of comments on my substitutions, but I'm in good company. I think Pep Guardiola makes less than me. He ain't bad, you know. I'm not remotely putting myself in his category, by the way. I'm just saying he doesn't like to make subs. Easy answer to this. Pep Guardiola has Erling Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Ruben Diaz, Rico Lewis. I can keep going if you want. And we have Ashley Young, Michael Keane. Do I really have to explain why substitutes might be more necessary for us than the guy who has arguably 11 world-class players on the pitch compared to the guy who has 0 and no one even close to a world-class player? I don't think we have a single player besides Pickford that's like top 50 in the Premier League of players. I don't. Maybe even top 100. Let me be brutally honest. You know, I think it's that simple. And I think it's just stupid quotes like this. People are saying your subs are crap because we have visible evidence that they're crap. We're not just saying it, there's visible evidence. Or your lack of subs, I should say. You clearly could have changed the game in that Bournemouth game by making subs when things started to go downhill and you chose not to. It's that simple. It's unfortunately for him, it is that simple. And I am again still on the thing that Dyche can turn this around. I'm not, again, I think I've mentioned this before, I think the bloke's just cursed in August, if you've seen the thing, like 2 wins in 25 games in August. I do think he can turn it around. I think a result against Villa here, even just a draw, could be a massive confidence spiral, a massive confidence boost in a set of fixtures that are very winnable after this. So, yeah, again, that's all I'm going to say about his pressers. I think the comments are a bit stupid, but again, I can kind of understand why he makes them. But going into the score prediction, I still think we're going to lose, to be honest with you. But I think this is going to be much more improved than everything else. I think it's going to be 2-1 Villa. I think you're going to see a much improved performance. I think you're going to see a lot more motivation from the lads, and I think you are going to see a team that more resembles something towards the end of last season than what we've seen at the start of this season. So I'm going to say 2-1 Villa, but I think there's going to be a stark improvement in the performance, to be honest. More similar to what we saw in the Bournemouth game, just toned down a little bit compared to what we've seen in the first 2 games. But that is all for this video. If you did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Everton Newsfeed and follow me on Twitter at Callum3. And I will see you all for the next video and our live stream that I am on. Goodbye, everyone.